I'm Mike Gavoni, and for the last 15 years, I've been in recovery from addiction and on the deepest quest to find healing, to experience my own unique wholeness beyond the story of what happened to me. By taking an integrative, holistic approach to experience transformation, I bring you the Healing Beyond Recovery podcast, a show dedicated to people in recovery who are looking for deeper healing and transformation.
Well, that hole in your soul that addicts are famous for is their heart calling their attention to come back home inside to their own magnificence, because that magnificence is within everybody. But if you're not connected to it, if your awareness is somewhere else, your focus is out somewhere else, you're not going to experience that. So you need to be present in your own space, in the space your body occupies. You need to become aware of that space. And in that space, you will find something that feels better than drugs.
Hello, everyone, and welcome to another episode of the Healing Beyond Recovery podcast. I'm your host, Mike Gavoni, and thank you for tuning into today's show. Today's guest is a pioneer in the field of health and wellness, Udo Erasmus. Udo developed the machinery to create flaxseed oil and started the healthy fats movement. I think that's a huge contribution, as many of us know about ketosis, ketogenic, eating keto. So, wow, Udo has been a huge contributor to this, and thank you so much for bringing this work to the world. Udo is also the founder of a highly successful supplement line, Udo's Choice Awards, harnessing the healing power of nature through his products made with health in mind. I'm sure most of you have seen his brand on shelves of stores like Whole Foods, Natural Grocers, and other stores providing people with professional grade supplements. Today, Udo is a best-selling speaker and author. He teaches at events hosted by Tony Robbins and Deepak Chopra and has extensive education in biochemistry, genetics, biology, and nutrition, and holds a master's degree in counseling psychology. When Udo and I first connected, we got right into talking about whole health and consciousness, and I knew right away we were going to be covering a lot of ground on our show when we recorded. So here we are today. We're going to be covering a lot of ground on different topics, and it's not too often that I come across someone like Udo who can see through this like multi-dimensional layer of health and healing. So I'm really excited to bring him and his knowledge and his expertise and his consciousness to you today, because he sees through so many different lenses, which obviously if you're an integrative practitioner like myself, you need to be able to see through. So Udo does a wonderful job. In fact, he is a pioneer in this work. So it's a pleasure for me to really be on this episode with him and bring it to you, because he's the man, and he's done a lot of beautiful things in the world and made some huge contributions. Udo and I are going to be talking about various subjects like how Udo's rough start to life and growing up in World War II, and also getting pesticide poisoning led him to this quest to heal and find the answers to the questions that were burning inside of him that we will share with you today. Many of us have these similar questions that are burning inside of us that need answers to. In fact, Udo is a great representation of someone who has listened to that and followed that and got the answers to those deep questions, and we'll hear about that more on today's show. Also, we'll be addressing the hole in the soul and what's missing. Now, what I mean by that is if you come from a conventional background of recovery like 12-step, then you hear a lot in the halls, I had to fill the hole in my soul. Well, what is the hole in the soul? And I think this is a very common question that many of us are looking for the answer to, of what's missing, what's wrong, right? What's this disconnect? So we talk about that disconnect and how to reconnect. And this is just a beautiful topic, because at the root of addiction is this disconnection that Udo talks about. Another huge paradigm shift, I believe, that is happening amongst the recovery community and that needs to be discussed is people are looking to connect with this power inside of themselves rather than believing that there's some sort of power outside of themselves that is, driving the bus. Well, in fact, I believe that God is within and God is without, but how do we begin to connect with this power inside of ourselves? So this is a fascinating topic that Udo and I discussed today, and how to reconnect with that power in you, right? As the great master said, once again, not getting religious here, but be still and know that I am God, right? God is within you. It's within all of us. Udo also shares his life contribution to the healthy fat movement and what healthy fats are. In fact, we talk about essential fatty acids. And when you think about that word essential, they're essential. We need them to live. And in fact, we don't make them ourselves, so we need them from the outside and from products and supplements and, most important, nutrition. So Udo talks about how important essential fatty acids are and how to use them to support your health. Also, Udo has created his 8 steps to total sexy health, which he shares the 8 steps on the episode to experience greater health, vitality, and presence in your everyday life. So his model is really fascinating. It hits upon some beautiful topics that we're going to share with you today. So without further ado, Udo, welcome to the show.
Yeah, thank you for putting me on. And if anything good comes out of it, I hope it's helpful to a lot of people.
Absolutely, and I'm sure it will. And I was looking at your bio here a little bit and some of the things you've accomplished, and you're a great human being that's delivering a powerful message today. You're also a being that covers a lot of ground. So I don't know exactly where this conversation's going, but like me, or maybe I followed your footsteps of getting into the health and wellness field and then into the world of consciousness. So I really have that similarity with you, and I think it's beautiful. You're also the founder of the well-known brand Udo's Choice Supplements. You've invented the machinery for making oils like flaxseed oil, enzymes, probiotics, and more, which is huge. Thank you so much for that contribution. You've been a guest teacher on health and oils for Tony Robbins events, guest teacher for Deepak Chopra's events. So you're no rookie here. You've been around the block for a long time. And if we use this video, they may be able to see that beautiful white hair, but you are a pioneer, and thank you for all your contributions.
Yeah, well, thank you. Yeah, you stop being a rookie when you turn about 70. It goes with age, right? If you live a long life, you can do a lot of things. And I'm lucky. I'm going to be 79 in May.
Oh wow!
And I started in a war, so I got going pretty early. And life can be better for people, and that's true for all 8 billion people on the planet. They could be better in a lot of different ways, and most everything to make it better already exists within us, but we have to go there to make it real.
Beautiful. And I wanted to first start off by you sharing briefly about what life was like starting off in a war zone. I know you had pesticide poisoning. So maybe we can just share a little bit about how you got started off and what contributed you to be the person you are today and the message that you're delivering in the world today.
Yeah, the time between being born in a war and the pesticide poisoning was about 36 years.
Okay.
So, but I was born during the Second World War in Poland, which was then part of Germany, to parents with Swedish-German background who had moved from Latvia and Estonia because the communists came in and took it over. And they loved the Russians, but they hated communism because the communists took everything away from everybody. So they moved to Poland, which had then a part of Poland that had become Germany because Germany took it over. So that's a whole long story for another time, how all of that craziness happened. And then at the end of the war, we were fleeing from Poland westward toward Germany with the communists chasing us in tanks and trucks. And the people who got caught ended up in Siberia, in the Gulag. And so they were chasing us from behind, and the Allies were using the refugees, which was mostly women with young children, on horse-drawn hay wagons, fleeing down country roads, didn't have time to stop to water or feed the horses. They were just trying to get out of there. And the Allies were using us refugees as target practice, shooting at us from artillery from planes. And so we got caught in the middle of that, and my mother left the road because it was safer to walk through the fields than to be on the road. She had 6 kids with her. She had to leave 4 behind. I was one of the ones that got left behind, ended up in an orphanage for a while, and we eventually got reunited. But if you think about it, what that's like for a 2-year-old, we're pretty sensitive when we're 2 years old. I don't recommend raising a 2-year-old in a war zone. But, you can apply that to the family war zone too, because the idea of you bring a child into the world and then you want to have a certain amount of stability and security and safety for that kid to allow it to grow without major fears and confusions. And I don't remember ever feeling safe for a long time. Even when I was safe, I still didn't feel safe because it was so burned into me. Right. And I was confused and I was anxious. I remember anxiety and hunger and not knowing what I could trust, not knowing what I could depend on, getting contradictory instructions about how to be, kind of like now, kind of like how it is all the time everywhere in some ways, but mostly really, really intense. A lot of fear, a lot of anxiety. And I grew up very shy, read a lot of books because books were safe. You can read about a war in a book, but not have stuff flying at you, right? So I got into the world of books, and of course, every book you read is a different world. So you can learn a lot from books. But I was pretty reclusive and quiet and shy. If I had to talk in front of the class, I would find a reason not to go to school. That's how shy I was. I couldn't stand having to look at more than 2 eyeballs at a time because, everybody comes in with different agendas, and I didn't know how to manage all the agendas of all the people that would come. So I wouldn't do it. But I had good conversations with individuals. And then when it came to learning, educating, getting educated, I got into science because I wanted to understand how things work. Because if you don't know how things work, it's confusing and frightening. So I wanted to learn how things work because that gave me a certain amount of security. Then I got into biological sciences to figure out how creatures work. Then I got into psychology to figure out how thinking works. Then I got into medicine to figure out how health works, but found out it's only about disease, and went back to biochemistry and genetics because you learn about health by studying the normal functioning of normal creatures in normal situations. Medicine concerns itself with studying disease of sick people in abnormal situations. And so then I left university because I still hadn't found what I was looking for, as YouTube so nicely said. You too so nicely sang. You know that song? I still haven't found what I'm looking for. So then I left university because I wasn't finding it there. And then eventually I got into self-knowledge because what I really needed to know, and it took me till I was 30 to figure that out, that I needed to know how I work. And then I got into self-knowledge. So that's basically is my background. When I was 6 years old, I heard people argue in Germany about stupid things, I thought. And it occurred to me, man, there has to be a way that people can live in harmony. And like a 6-year-old who doesn't know how complicated everything is, I said, I'm going to find out how. So that's been my driver all my life.
And wow, what a story. Thank you for sharing that. And, from where you started off in a war zone, orphanage, university, to who you've become and what you've brought to the world is a true testament of who you are. And I'm reading a Napoleon Hill book right now, and he talks about rarely do we see really successful men, whatever you want to, say successful is, do we see them start off with an easy, upbringing? So it's people like you, myself. I mean, look at the Oprah Winfrey's, the Tony Robbins of the world. They started off with a really troublesome and traumatic background, and that's what you were, experiencing was trauma. And I'm curious, was there a catalyst that got you into exploring the self or self-knowledge? Because for me, it took me an inescapable suffering of a disease to actually go within myself to say, okay, self-knowledge, self-realization. How did that come about for you?
That's a great question, because when I was 17, so I was just had started university. When I was 17, I remember feeling a pain in my chest, an ache in my chest, a discomfort in my chest. I didn't know what it was. I didn't know anybody who'd ever talked about it, but I couldn't shake it. And because I couldn't shake this ache, I basically felt it all the time. So I didn't try to dwell on it. I just couldn't shake it. And that ache, I didn't know what it was, but I do know now. What that ache is it is the pain of my loss of my connection to myself. And it is my heart calling my awareness to come back home inside to its source in life.
Wow.
That ache, I have never met a person who doesn't know that ache. We just call it lots of different names. Like, for instance, if my girlfriend dumped me, I would call it feeling blue. I feel it here, right? Feeling blue. If a grandmother died and I was really close to her, sorrow, felt it here. If somebody made a promise and then broke their promise and I was disappointed, felt it here. Now it's called disappointment. But restlessness and emptiness and isolation, separation, sometimes anxiety, sometimes depression, loneliness, longing, striving. I mean, I have 10 pages of different words that people use for this uncomfortable feeling in the chest. And that nobody explains it to us. And we give it different names depending on what the trigger was. But that feeling is not about the trigger. That feeling is about our disconnection from ourselves. Now, where does that come from? When I was in my mother's womb, when you were in your mother's womb, there was nowhere to go. There was nothing to do. Everything was taken care of. And it was relatively safe. And your awareness, because it had nowhere to go, was actually at rest inside, in the core of your being, in life. And I call it the Buddha tank, because we were floating around in this tank. The body was growing. There was nothing we had to do to make that happen, right? Yeah. And our awareness was at rest inside, in life, and we were enlightened or lit up from within. And then when we get out, eventually people go on a spiritual path. The Buddhists call it enlightenment, which means being filled with light. Why does he call it that? Because there's light within us. But we're not connected to it when our awareness goes out. When we get born, we go from being present in that light inside and go out through our senses into the world, because we have to get to know the world. And in that process, we get disconnected from our heart, our core, and we end up getting connected to the world of surfaces of things. And that's where that ache begins. So our disconnection from ourselves. We blame it on people sometimes. We try to ignore it. We try to deny it. Or we try to distract ourselves from it. And it becomes our driving force. And in everything we do is somehow, what can I do that will make me feel whole again? And then when we come up with something, because nobody tells us what it is, then we come up with something. If we become successful, sometimes it takes years, Then we have 3 days where we say, oh, yay, I did it, I did it, I did it. And then on day 4, this ache is back. So, oh, it didn't fix it. And that's because the disconnect is inside and the reconnect also has to be inside. Now, talking about drug addicts, the reason why drug addicts are famous for having an ache in their chest that they don't know what to.
We call it the hole in the soul, Udo.
Okay, yeah, there's lots of, that's a good one.
In 12-step recovery, you hear all the time, the hole in your soul.
Yeah, well, that hole in your soul that addicts are famous for is their heart calling their attention to come back home inside to their own magnificence, because that magnificence is within everybody. But if you're not connected to it, if your awareness is somewhere else, your focus is out somewhere else, you're not going to experience that. So you need to be present in your own space, in the space your body occupies. You need to become aware of that space. And in that space, you will find something that feels better than drugs. But until you find, and if drugs is the best thing you've felt, then of course you're going to go to that.
Yeah.
And nobody addresses the hole in the soul.
I think addicts are natural seekers. We seek in the wrong place, such as outside of ourselves, trying to fill that. And in fact, there's a beautiful quote by Joanne Hari, and she says, the opposite of addiction is not sobriety, it's connection.
Yeah, but sometimes they say it's connection to other people. And I'm saying, no, there's even a deeper connection, which is your connection to your self.
Beautiful. So check this out. Ready? Ever since I had a spiritual awakening that led me back home to myself, I never practiced the same things I used to stay sober when I first got into recovery, such as in 12-step program, it's a power greater than yourself. Once I discovered this power inside of me, Udo, now this isn't for all the listeners. If you go to AA and 12-step programs, great. That's not a problem. But what Udo is saying is there's a power within yourself. Am I correct? There's something inside of you.
In fact, when you talk about the power greater than yourself, the power greater than yourself is outside of you, but it's also inside of you. So what the masters spoke about and the mastery that they had, that they brought to expression from their own experience, that exact mastery is called life, and is the power that runs you. That is your master. Your master lives inside of you, right? And until you get to know that master within you experientially, you'll follow anything that is more inspired than you are, that feels more inspired than you are. And when you find that, you no longer need to follow. Then what you do is you talk to life. You experience life. You experience the mastery. You bring out your wisdom from inside, because it's all there. It's all there in everybody.
Yeah.
But very few people take this road home and live from presence. Most people are, either they buy something, or they try to master some outside skill, or they try to be famous or make money or something. They mostly live their life out from, outwardly into the world, but they don't go deep to the source so they can live everything into the world.
And to quote one of those,
that's the greatest neglect of every culture, every nation, every race, every politics, because nobody consistently tells you what this is, even though it is a biological, universal human issue.
Absolutely.
And part of my job is I want to tell as many people about it as I can, because I know it from my own experience.
Me too. And that's why when I first connected with you, I knew that you were about health and wellness, but then there was a whole other part of you that you were expressing to me, which I totally resonate with and I appreciate so much. And to quote one of those great masters that you were just talking about, Jesus said himself, be still and know that I am God.
Hello.
Inside is that conscious. So you want to call it Buddha nature, Christ consciousness. It's inside.
Yeah. It's just like, and it wouldn't make any sense for masters to come if they had something and we had nothing. If there was no way for us to have that experience, that would be just like the whole thing wouldn't make sense. But what they did is they were human beings, or like in human bodies, just like we are. But they took time to get quiet and sit down and practice bringing their awareness inside into what made them the masters, which is in everybody. And then they said, well, the kingdom of heaven is inside of you, and God lives in the kingdom of heaven. So God lives in the kingdom of heaven inside of you. He also said, what you've done to one of the least of these that you have done to me, that only makes sense if I am in everyone. So when you start thinking about what it actually means, what they say, it's very different from how we get it preached. Right? This is about, I say to people sometimes, hey, whose body is that? I point at them and say, whose body is that? And usually the answer they'll give me is, well, that's my body. Well, that's my body, right? But when I say this is my body, I'm also telling you that I am not the body. I'm the owner of the body. I am the owner of the body. And the body is my property. And it turns out that who is I, if you ask them, how well do you know the owner of your body? Well, most people have to say not much. Why? Because that owner is life. Life is solar energy that went into green leaves, that was stored in the bonds between atoms to make molecules that became our food. We eat the food, we break down those molecules, the solar energy is released, and that energy is our life. Externally, I'm talking about it scientifically now. If you bring your awareness inside and you look into the darkness deep enough, you will find light in that darkness, and you are that light. And the more you dwell on that light, the more of the wisdom, the more unconditional love you will feel, because your life loves your body unconditionally.
Yeah.
And when you experience yourself as that solar energy, as that master, as that presence, as that light, when you experience yourself that way, you become unaddicted to all the things you get addicted to when you're missing it. Because your addiction is driven by your disconnection.
Yeah, disconnection from yourself, first and foremost. Yeah.
And then, of course, if I'm disconnected from myself, I'm actually also disconnected from everybody else. Because I don't see in them what I don't see in myself. When I see it in myself, I get it. It's in you too. It's in the kid too. It's in the people who don't like me too. And it's in the people who I like too. Right? So it's literally the nature of our being is a presence that most of us miss and all of us have. And anyone who connects to it, it makes their life whole.
And when we first spoke to do this pre-podcast interview, you said to get reconnected requires deliberate choice.
Yeah.
So tell us about that for the listeners that are like, oh yeah, okay, great. That's a concept I can, put in my mind, but how do I actually reconnect with this?
Yeah. And the reconnection is not in your head. The reconnection is in your experience. We can say words, and I'm saying words to try and talk about something, but I'm the connection I'm talking about is one that you either experience or you don't. And it's the experience of that connection that makes you whole. Because if you keep saying, I'm whole, I'm whole, I'm whole, I'm whole, but your heart's hurting all the time because you're disconnected from it, then saying, I'm whole, I'm whole, I'm whole, I'm whole, is not the way you become whole. You need to experience that wholeness, and it is completely possible. But it takes practice, You got to bring your awareness inside. Now, you were saying, oh yeah, so this issue of not feeling whole and then having to find a way to come back to wholeness is not an issue that trees have. You know, trees hang out. They don't ever go outside of themselves. They just hang out in their sunlight energy. Dogs, they'll go out and come back to their body. Humans go out and come back to their head. And so we have a gap that's particularly human between the head and the heart, between the thoughts and the experience of wholeness. And because we are made that way by nature, it requires for us to do something deliberate, take time for stillness, follow breathing, feel the feelings in your body. You know, try to see, try to hear, try to feel what can be seen, heard, and felt in the space you occupies, in the space your body occupies, in order to make that reconnection. And that reconnection came from our awareness going out through our senses into the world after we're born. Because we have to get to know the world, because we have to learn how to survive in it. And in that process, our awareness automatically goes outside into the world. Our focus goes outside and gets disconnected from being focused inside like it was in our mother's body. And the movement outside is automatic, because what does it depend on? Anything that changes. So you hear a sound, immediately say, oh, what's that? Right? Because you have to assess it for, is this dangerous? Or is this friendly? Or is it irrelevant? Or you see something move. You know, shape, color, movement. You see something move. Immediately your senses go out to it. Your eyes go out to it. Your awareness goes out to it, because you have to assess it, friendful or irrelevant. And then decide what you need to do depending on how you assess it. Right? So that's important for survival. But there's nothing inside that calls you back through your senses, because there's nothing inside going, ah! There's nothing moving. There's nothing crazy, because inside is peace. Inside is love. Inside is contentment, quiet. You know, it's like, and because there's nothing calling you back by change, there has to be another way to get back, because if it's not going to happen automatically. So what there is your heart aches, and your heart aching keeps bringing your awareness back to your heart, and your heart is calling you home. And in order to get home, you need to sit still, get quiet, forget all your distractions for a few minutes or a few hours, depending how deep you want to go. And don't blame anybody, don't judge it, don't deny it, don't ignore it, and don't distract yourself from it, but sit with that ache. That's what I tell everybody, addict or not addict. That ache is in everybody. We have different ways of medicating it. Sit with that ache and just feel it.
Yeah, and that's...
Let me just finish. And it can be pretty intense, and you might even cry. It's okay. But don't judge it. Just be with it, feel it, accept it, embrace it, and maybe even be grateful for it, because that ache will nag you until you come home. It's the greatest gift you have other than being alive, because it is your way to come home to the magnificence of your existence.
Yeah.
Your built-in magnificence of your existence.
Yeah, that's beautiful. And it took me a lot of suffering for the conditions to arise for me to actually come home to myself and my body. And this is where the Buddhist and Tao tradition, there's 4 doorways to enlightenment. One is meditation, death, tantric sex, and trauma. So for me, trauma and having the disease turn to disease, right, showing up in my body and the suffering showing up caused me to meditate to calm down my autonomic nervous system. When I started practicing meditation and going deep within, I had that profound experience to connect with myself. And in fact, there's a beautiful Tibetan prayer. It says, may you experience enough suffering to awaken your deepest wisdom and compassion. So there was the bridge between the heart and the head of me not running away. And this is even 9 years into recovery. I put the drugs down, Udo. The ache was still there. The ache showed up more than ever without any substances. And boy, when I turned to it, my heart opened. I had this beautiful heart opening I had this compassion for myself, for this guy who was suffering, all these beings. And I've never been the same since that moment. So I think it's beautiful, the message you're relaying here. And I think it's important to say to the listeners too, is your ache doesn't have to be chemical sensitivity. It could be just the constant friction that you're experiencing, that sense of dis-ease, right? Some people get cancer and it calls them back home to themselves. So I'm curious for you, was it through the pesticide poisoning or what the hell called you back home?
No. So one thing you said, you're talking about stopping drugs, not making the ache go away. No, of course, because it wasn't absence of drugs that was your problem. Your problem was disconnection from the heart. And because the disconnection from the heart is an intense drive, you're trying to figure out, how do I get it taken care of? And drugs was one of the things you tried in order to try and, medicate this ache that was uncomfortable and you didn't like. Well, when you then kick the habit, which takes a lot of willpower and maybe some support, when you kick the habit, that doesn't mean that the ache has gone away. Now it's like, okay, well, I've got to do something else. Maybe you lose yourself in making a lot of money, or maybe you lose yourself in playing a musical instrument, or maybe you lose yourself in a girl or a guy or whatever it is. Because once we feel this ache, it's almost like the purpose of our life becomes to find a way to find a balm for the ache, right? That doesn't change until you find what is actually the cause of the ache, and then you address the cause. And the cause of the ache is loss of self-presence. And the balm for that ache is coming home to self-presence again. Mm-hmm. And in that self-presence, there is no ache. That's how the ache goes away, right? So now you don't have an ache. Now you feel joy. Now you feel peace. Now you feel loved. Now you feel content. Now you feel like you're okay. Mm-hmm. And maybe like a lot better than okay. Maybe I feel really good.
Like enlightened.
Because built into every human being is a beautiful feeling of being alive. And then now it's like, well, okay, now the whole thing changes. Now it's not like, what can I do to deal with my heartache, or the trauma that I blame it on, or whatever it is I blame it on. Now the question is, okay, I'm taken care of. If I don't feel taken care of, I know where to go to feel taken care of, because taken care of lives inside of me. So I'm not going out there to try and figure it out. I just go back to where it lives. So I've actually found the solution to the whole question of heartache. And when I found that solution, I feel taken care of. And now the whole thing changes. Now it's not like, what can I do that'll take care of me? Now it's like, what needs to be done around here? Where can I help? What's the biggest splash for good I can make in a lifetime? And your life, all of a sudden, the world opens up, your life opens up. You don't do just a few things, little things that you hope will take care of you. You actually are open to taking on the world, to do what needs to be done. And then you will be more successful because you're going to do what needs to be done instead of only doing the things you think are going to make you happier. You bring happiness into the food, into the job, not always trying to extract it. The only satisfaction in the job, when they talk about job satisfaction, the only satisfaction in the job is the satisfaction you bring to it. Because the job's just a job. You move things from here to there. You do certain transactions. There's no satisfaction in any of those transactions. Satisfaction is a feeling that you want to feel inside. It's already there. So you got to suck back into it before you do any work. And then bring that feeling into what you do. And then you make your money and pay your rent and deal with your kids and all of the things that you do as a human being, but you're not doing it to satisfy yourself. You're doing it because it needs to be done. It's
beautiful. And if we could all, let's just say, have that experience of coming home to ourselves and having that deeper purpose bloom from within, can you imagine what the world would be like today? I only do what I do today because I experienced the suffering, I experienced the awakening, and oh my God, what am I going to do now? Sit here and collect things? Not really. Yeah. I have to offer this medicine back to other people.
Yeah, basically. And the suffering, that suffering.
Yeah.
Pain is a huge gift.
Huge gift.
It forces you to take notice. Something's wrong. Something needs attention. Something's not going right. Ouch, it hurts. And whether it's the pain in your heart or it's a pain in your body, and the pain is a gift that forces you to take notice. And it doesn't tell you what it's a pain about. So then you have to figure out, then you have to search, then you have to explore, then you have to ask questions, then you have to, could it be? If I do this, does it go away? If I do that, does it go away? If I do it and it goes away, does it come back when I stop doing it? And so that's how you learn, right? But the suffering of all sufferings, the core human suffering, is the disconnection from the core of our being. And when you deal with that, everything becomes easier. Because when I'm discontent, I will do things that are bad for my health. And I'll do things that are bad for my society. And I'll do things that are bad for my environment. And I'll do things that are bad for, I become destructive to everything outside of me. Because I feel destroyed inside. I feel kaput inside. I feel damaged inside. Those are all just words for heartache. And when that's, and when I find my way back to that core issue, then everything, then it's like, okay, I feel good. I'm glad I'm alive. I want to live as long as I can, as healthy as I can. Okay, I need to make some changes. I'm going to stop eating donuts and start eating whole grains. I'm going to eat more plant-based than animal-based because there's good research that shows, there are ways to live longer and better. Well, let me collect those things that allow me to live longer and better. But if my heart is always aching, I'm always in pain, then I get depressed. Then my immune system shuts down. Then I get sick, right? But it started from not feeling whole. And then when I get depressed enough, sometimes people destroy their body because they don't feel like it's worth the effort to keep healthy. But when I'm excited about being alive and inspired by the fact that here's dust, water, air, and light, and it became me, right? And being a human being is like so much as possible. It's such an experience just to be alive. When I have that experience, I'll do whatever I need to do. And not only that, but out of that feeling, I will light up the world. I will make lives better.
Yeah, beautiful.
That I touch. But if I'm not inspired, then everything's too hard. Everything's too much work. So I'll do the minimum. Mm. If I'm really uninspired, then I'll destroy my body.
Yeah. So let's venture into that world of health and wellness, because that's a huge part of what you've been doing for decades. And there's so many diets and fads, and yep. I'm a total believer that if you don't take care of that deep core issue, for example, sometimes the fat that we hold is a protector. It's serving us in some way. So to get reconnected, with that on a deeper level is beautiful and opens up so many other doors. So you're a huge fan about healthy fats, oils, things of that nature. Since I have shifted my diet and healed from a sugar addiction, processed foods, of course, it took disease for that to happen and pain to wake up. I've been eating more healthy fats. And I think healthy fats are just beginning to come up to the surface, but you're a pioneer in this. But you have guys now like Dave Asprey who are talking about MCT oil and coconut oil and saturated fats. Let's get into that world a little bit and just share your background with, extracting fats and oils for health.
Yeah. Well, I not much in my life worked until I got this taken care of. From 17 till 30, I was living with this all the time, couldn't shake it. People tell me, think about something else. I couldn't. People said, why don't you get a job like your brother? I couldn't, because this was a preoccupation. There's something not right. I don't know what it is. I need to find it. Mm. So I had started that, and then I got married and we had kids and my marriage broke up, and it was like, I was really upset. And I had a job as a gardener, and I got a pesticide sprayer license as part of that job. And because I was so upset, I got a full-time job as a pesticide sprayer because I got to kill things, right? That's what pesticides are for. So got a job as a pesticide sprayer, really careless. Walked through the wood, over the lawns. I'd sprayed till the skin peeled off my feet, then wore rubber boots. Did it in a bathing suit because it was a summer job and I wanted to get a tan, and the wind would drift the spray on my back. And people say, aren't you worried you're going to get poisoned? I say, nah, I'm immune. And 3 years later, I discovered I was not immune. I got poisoned by the pesticides I sprayed. And I went to the doctor and said, what do you have for pesticide poisoning? And she said, nothing. That was the entire consultation. Nothing. And that day, that's the day when I realized, oh my God, I am 100% responsible for my health, because the doctor gets paid even if I die, right? So, if I want to live and want to get well, I need to be the driving force of that, right? So then I had this background in science, so I used that to go into the journals to talk about health and nutrition, disease and nutrition. Because the body's made out of food, water, air, and solar energy. That's all the body's ever made from in nature. So I said, okay, well, there must be something about food, water, air, and light that I need to address. And so I was looking at all of that. And then I got into all the essential nutrients, like the 18 minerals, 13 vitamins, 8 essential amino acids that come from proteins, and 2 essential fatty acids that come from fats. The ones that were most confusing were the fats. And in fact, the year I got poisoned, 1980, I started looking into journals. 1981, it was established that omega-3s are essential. And essential has a very specific definition in nutrition. Not in marketing. In marketing, they tell you everything's essential because they want you to buy it.
Yeah, like you need them to live.
Yeah, and essential in the definition is you can't make it in your body from anything else. You have to have it to live and be healthy. Therefore, you have to bring it in from outside.
Yep.
That's number one. Number two, if you don't get enough, you will lose your health, your physical health. Your health will deteriorate. You will get deficiency symptoms. they are degenerative in nature. They get worse with time. And if you don't get enough long enough, you die. These are like the essential building blocks that life requires for body construction. And life knows what to do with them. I have to commit to make sure that optimum amounts of all of the essential nutrients land in my body so life can do the job of making me an optimally functioning body. So if while I'm going down because I'm not getting enough, I bring enough of these essential building blocks into my body, then all the problems that come from not getting enough are reversed, because life knows how to do that. If I've taken responsibility for making sure that they're available to life to make the body. Now, I also knew that every year, 99% of the atoms in your body, in my body today, in anybody's body today, will have been removed and replaced if we get together a year from now. 98% of all the atoms turn over in 1 year. That means your body is a major construction site, ongoing construction site. And it means that if my health goes down, my physical health goes down, then if I raise the standard of my intake of food, better water, better air, and enough exposure to solar energy, then I can rebuild 98% of my body to a higher standard within 1 year. That's called healing. The only reason we can heal is because the body's always turning over. So better input ends up better output.
So where does someone begin that want to start feeding themselves with these high omega-3 fatty acids?
Right.
Where are they found?
So what I found, first of all, oils are the most sensitive nutrients in our diet. Light, oxygen, and heat damage them. That means when you fry with oils, you're doing one of the dumbest things we've ever invented to do.
Yeah, oxidizing the oil.
You're damaging them with light, oxygen, and heat all at the same time. And because they're the most sensitive, they should get the most care because they're perishable. But we give them the least care. We don't throw anything else in the frying pan and watch it turn into smoke and then still eat it, right? So when I found that out, is like, oh my God, we should be making oils with health rather than shelf life in mind. So I developed a method for doing that. I grew up on a farm, so tinkering was kind of fun. And I decided I couldn't get healthy with damaged oils, so let's make them with health in mind. And then the year after I got poisoned, omega-3 was established as an essential nutrient. For omega-6, that was already known in 1929. But omega-3, just the year I got poisoned. And I was in the right place at the right time to get this information. And when I realized this, every cell needs them. 99% of the population doesn't get enough. They're super sensitive and a nightmare to work with. So nobody wants to do that. They've been lowered in the diet by 6 times. So we're not getting enough. And I said, oh my God, if we could make them with health in mind and bring them back into the diet, we could help so many people. And I was like, oh my God, I have found a purpose for my life. Honestly, I went off like a firecracker. I got so inspired. And it was hard work. We had to start everything from scratch. We didn't have any money, but we had enthusiasm up the yin yang, as they say, right? And so then that basically was the driver for all of that. I got into fats and developed first flax oil, and then a blend that is better balanced, because flax oil is a poorly balanced oil by itself. Then I got into digestive enzymes and probiotics and fiber and stuff like that. And then I got into inspiration, because I realized that unless I can inspire people and give them good information, if they're not inspired, they're not going to change their habits. So that became important. And then I got into, well, what else affects health? And it was like, you know what? Everything affects health.
Yeah.
So you got to give the heart attention, awareness, number 1, life energy, number 2.
All right. So are we getting into your 8 steps now of total sexy health?
Yeah.
All right, cool. So real quick, you kind of came up with this program, 8 Steps
Yeah.
to Total Sexy Health. So let's
Yeah.
let's go. We have internal awareness, life energy.
Yeah, life energy, inspired creativity, which is the shine of life into the world, and then physical body, food and fitness, and sleep and rest, and healing, and detox, and then number 5 is survival smarts, and that's about dealing with crisis and anticipating crisis as much as you can, and then social group. Mm-hmm. Environment and big picture, infinite awareness, because here we are, the body's a terminal condition, living in an infinite universe, has a limited time, and to be okay with all of that, and to be fully present in all of my being and my surroundings is the goal. Because when I'm fully present in all of my being, I bring everything to the world, and I deal best with whatever comes at me. Fully present in all of my being and my surroundings, not lost in thoughts in my head.
Yeah, beautiful, beautiful. So for the listeners out there that are like, oh my God, this is great information, and yet I'm crawling out of my skin because I can't be with myself. The audience per se, I don't think is so much in active addiction, but my work is healing beyond recovery, which is to unite with that part of yourself that's lost. So if we had to give the audience, maybe 2 to 5 simple steps that we can begin to take today to start connecting with ourselves, start on this path of healing, what may they be?
Well, the first one is always, and all the great masters said that, the number one thing you need to do is get connected. Get connected to you, from the disconnection that you've been suffering under. Yeah, get reconnected.
So could that be look like earthing in the ground, earthing with your feet in the ground, just as a starter, or what's that look like?
We're not. No, that's more physical. No, okay. What I'm talking about is you want to be fully present in all of your being, and you want to get to the heart first, because from there you can literally heal everything else. And they all said that. First seek the kingdom of heaven. Is one of the way they said it, right? First, deal with the thirst of the heart. First, feel whole. Because the only reason you don't feel whole is not because you're not whole. The only reason you don't feel whole is because you're not connected to the wholeness that is already in you. So do that first. That's the homework. Always start with the homework, right? And when you do that homework, everything else starts to become easier.
Right? So that's take some time in stillness, listening to the ache, maybe connecting with your breath, right? Meditation, slowing down. Is that what you'd say?
Yeah, all of that. Taking time, maybe disconnecting from all of your gadgets for, instead of disconnecting from yourself. How about you disconnect from your gadgets?
Yeah, that's a good start.
And you give yourself an hour every day to be with yourself and to allow yourself to reconnect to yourself. Mm-hmm. That's number one. Because you know what? My body could be completely wrecked. My thinking could be a complete mess. I could be completely confused. My social group could be completely dysfunctional, and my environment could be a disaster area. And there I would still be whole in the core of my being. And I would still be whole in my life energy because they are not affected by any of that stuff. And I could still be inspired. And out of that wholeness, I could rebuild everything else. So I could heal. And that's why the really wise people say, do that first. Because once you do that, everything else will start to fall into place.
Okay, so we have the get connected, right? Yeah. And let's maybe give the listeners a couple other steps from your long history of doing this deep work and studies. Where else would you say to go? What's next?
Well, I would say take, if you're going to start from the most important, then you start with awareness, internal awareness. And when you go inside into that awareness is not limited to your body. That awareness is centered in your core, and it goes out to infinity. A lot changes when you experience that. Mm-hmm. So then the second would be the light, the sound, the feeling of what it feels like to be alive. And feel it, because that's where your unconditional love lives. Life loves your body unconditionally. And when you feel that unconditional love, it automatically extends out from you into your surroundings. But only when you feel it. Only when you feel it. It's always there, but only when you feel it does it come to expression. That's automatic. So that'd be number 2. Number 3, in those 2 experiences, you will find your purpose. Because now you feel taken care of, and basically you can say, what do I have talent for? What do I have experience in? What I have capability for? What am I attracted to doing? And so I can use all the talents I have and my entire being to do something that helps. I think it's always something about helping make life better for as many people, as many creatures as possible. Right? To serve, some people call that to serve, to do something to help people have a better life. That's the only thing that really makes sense when I feel taken care of. Why would I do anything else? Why would I destroy things just for the fun? That wouldn't be fun. That's stupid, right? So that's number 3 is purpose. And then number 4 is to keep the body able to be a good servant. Right? Because it's
keep it healthy.
Use for that.
So keep it healthy.
Yeah, keep it healthy. It's made out of food, water, air, and light. Light we just talked about. Food, water, air. Fresh air, fresh water, whole foods, as close to nature as possible, because health was created in nature. And the reason deer and bears don't need degrees in nutrition is because they live in line with nature where they live. Yeah. Right? They eat everything raw, fresh, whole, raw, and organic. Right? That's nature's standard for how to eat. And then more plants than animal foods for us, because they work better for longer health and longer life. And in fact, how people say, oh, I'm a red-blooded American, Canadian, whatever, I gotta have my steak. And we're like real men eat meat, right? But you know what? In terms of sexual function, plant-based have good sexual function into an older age than animal-based.
Oh, wow.
There's research on it. But the advertising has always told a different story. It's just not true. Yeah. Right? And then you do your activity, because your body's made for activity. So you need to be active. Otherwise your body falls apart. And then you need to take time to rest, because your body needs rest. So you got to do sympathetic, go, go, go. But you also got to do parasympathetic, which is like relax, sleep, listen to music, dance, your own dance, with or without music, right? And do things that are relaxing. Hang out with people that you can have fun with, and do your inner practice. All of those help you become, and you live longer when you do more of that.
Yeah.
And then you have the crisis management, and that's basically based on, number 1, you want to be calm under fire. So again, you got to go back to the core of it, and you want to learn as many skills as you need to learn that you can anticipate. And you got to be in a place where you can be present enough in your life and calm enough in your life that you remain calm under fire and deal with what comes at you. And then this social group, that people affect your health, because, when we were kids playing soccer, and people used to tick us off, we would yell at him, "You make me sick."
Mm.
Right? So we, even as kids, we knew that people affect our health.
Mm.
And then environment, obviously, if you're living in a parking lot, that's not as good as living in the forest, right?
Yeah.
And living in the city, there's a lot, it's not as natural as it could be. So spend time in nature, hang out in the elements, jump in the lake, climb mountains, swoosh around on slippery boards on the snow, all those things, that you do in nature, good for you. And then be comfortable with the fact that one day your body will die, and that you have limited time, but be calm about it. Not like, oh my God, I'm going to die. No, but be calm about it. Be okay with it. It's a fact. It's not like, as much as we talk about, oh, one day we'll all be able to live forever. No, you won't. Anything that has form will break down eventually.
For sure.
Be okay with that. And you have time here. And what is better worth doing in your time here than something that comes from the heart, that comes from love, that comes from inspiration, that comes from you feeling comfortable in your own skin.
Yeah. Yeah.
In all ways comfortable in your own skin.
Yeah. One of my quotes is, it's your birthright to feel comfortable in your own skin. And so many people who have suffered from addiction and just in general, the existential, crisis of being in this impermanent body, can get the best of us. But, we all will get old, get sick, and die one day. So to be able to really practice for when that happens is important.
Yeah. And be clear what you live for.
Yeah.
And love, it always comes back to love.
Yeah.
The message of all the masters, if you turn it into 9 short words, I am come not to judge, but to love.
Mm.
Now that's a goal. That's a high goal. That's definitely a high goal. But at least we can work towards it. I'm not there all the time, but I'm working towards it, and I take it seriously.
Yeah.
Because there is no better goal to have than that kind of a goal.
Yeah, for sure. And it's sometimes it's lives long. So I believe that we have another chance to go at it, and take our karmic, our karma with us. But this has been a beautiful conversation, Udo. And what are you working with people today, or how are you operating with people? How are you working with them? What are you offering? Where can people find you?
Well, there's two main places. I have 2 websites. One is called udoschoice.com, UDOS choice.com. And we talk about the products that I work with and why we made them and how we made them and how our thinking about that part of health. Everything I do is about health. Under health, I can address every problem on the planet, and I really like that. Mm. And then that's the product website. And then the other one is the Udo, THEUDO, or Udo Erasmus, which is my name, .com. And there we have education and information and some courses, and we're just working on that. That basically, we've been at it for a couple of years. We got a lot more to do. And fundamentally, everything is about how can I, my goal, what I'm living into, 8 billion people could live their lives lit up from within because the light is already in them. And they just have to look into it instead of looking away from it. When we look into it, we will feel so cared for, because life takes perfect care of us, that we won't steal each other's stuff because we don't need more stuff. When we don't steal each other's stuff, we can live in harmony. When we live in harmony, making sure that everybody's basic needs are met on a long-term sustainable basis is a normal, natural outcome. That's what I'm living into.
Yeah.
Literally, Beautiful. There's no reason why 8 billion people can't live the way the masters lived, the way and it's not about having a big mansion. It's about filling this mansion with the love that makes it that makes it bigger than anything else.
Yeah.
So that's what I'm working into. And I have a YouTube channel, and I'm on Instagram, and I'm on Facebook, and I'm on LinkedIn. So I'm not hard to find. I do quite a bit of posting on different topics and little quips and little quotes and, conversations with people, because we're not traveling as much. I traveled for about 30 years, 15 years, 6 to 9 months a year. I was on the road, 40 countries, talking to anybody who would listen, and kind of got a pretty good reputation for being straight and not BSing people. And honestly, given that war is what we have to look forward to when we don't cultivate peace, I'm very interested in cultivating peace and cultivating love and cultivating those values that make us feel richer inside. Because we're more in line with the comfort within our own skin.
Beautiful. Well, you're an inspiration to me for sure. I can resonate on many different levels with you. And I really just want to say, thank you for transforming yourself and offering this beautiful gift and holding such a high inspiration for the benefit of all beings, of these 8 billion souls here. So it's really beautiful. And I'll include where everyone can find you in the show notes with the links, so they'll have that stuff. And once again, Udo, thank you for taking the time out today to talk with me.
Yeah, thank you. What you're doing is pretty amazing. Right now you're an amplifier for my message, but you have a very good message too, because it's not different. You're different than I am in detail, but not in essence.
Yes.
And the fact that you went through what you went through and came through it and got to a place beyond kicking addiction, but going from kicking something negative to embracing something positive.
Yeah.
Which is really what you're doing, right?
Yeah. That's the healing beyond recovery.
Exactly.
Yeah.
Exactly. Yes. So that's exactly what you're doing. I can tell you this, there's no better way to live your life than to be drawn by a vision. It's way better than being driven by a stick, even though 95% of the people will respond more to pain than they will to joy.
Yeah.
But the vision is a joy. Say, oh my God, something is possible. Oh, let me aim for it. And thinking big is no more difficult than thinking small. So why not just think for the whole world?
Yeah.
Why not make it as big as you can? Not because you think that if more people know you, that you're going to be happier. No, it's because they'll be happier. Because you're putting out something for them.
Yeah.
Because it's not about you anymore.
Yeah.
How cool is that?
Well, thank you. Those words are touching, because it's your experience and guys like you who have paved the way to have gone further enough in the cycle to realize what it's really all about in the end. And I'm driven. I'm still a young guy. I'm in my 30s, and part of me is like, oh yeah, I'm gonna have a family soon, and I want to succeed. But deep in my heart, I know that stuff or material things aren't gonna bring me more joy and happiness. It's more that connection. It's living simple. It's giving back to others. Yeah. So thank you. And even maybe we could do a part 2 to this, because I think there's a lot more to cover if you're open to that.
Yeah, I'm open to it for sure.
Beautiful.
Yeah, and it's honestly, I thank you for being on my team.
For sure.
I'm on your team, but you're on my team too. Everybody's on the team, but some people function more effectively on that team than others.
Yeah. Well, we're on each other's team, and I'm happy to be on your team and happy you're on mine.
Yeah.
Thank you.
All right. Thank you.
We will. I want to thank you for listening to today's episode, and it's people like Udo that have made huge contributions to the world that I love to connect with and learn from and bring their wonderful stories and teachings to listeners like you. Udo, thank you for your wonderful work, and I know we could all benefit from the message Udo shared today about living a more healthy, conscious life in the present moment. As a way to show his appreciation, Udo is offering all listeners a discount on his products, in which you can click the link in the show notes that will bring you directly to the discount code to purchase a product or service from Udo. Also, if you're interested in learning more about taking a holistic, integrative approach to your life and recovery to experience deeper healing and transformation, I have a couple spots left in my one-on-one coaching program and would love to connect to see how I can support you. If this resonates with you, please feel free to click the Apply Now link in the show notes, and it will prompt you to my calendar to schedule your complimentary discovery call with me today. Once again, thank you for listening, and remember, you can heal no matter what your story may be. Happy healing and be well.